Okay, thank you. Whilst we take our seats, I will introduce Agenda 4.3. This agenda item will be discussed in 3 batches of working papers. Given that we progressed well this morning, I'll tempt fate a little bit and say that if we are able to address 4.3 and 4.4 before the end of the day, we will try to get into completing the draft report, working paper 302 on agenda item 2. Batch 1 of 4.3 would include working papers 11, 69, 137, 108, 157, 238, 91, 165, and 99. I'll now ask the Secretariat to present working paper 11.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Working paper 11 starts highlighting the advantages of applying a performance-based approach when planning the implementation of air navigation operational improvements. In this regard, it highlights the importance of following a globally harmonized performance management process, the 6-step ICAO performance management process described in the manual on global performance of the air navigation system, document 9883, to apply this approach, and presents ICAO's initiatives in facilitating the adoption of this process. The paper also clarifies the role of the aviation system block upgrade framework within this process as a group of potential solutions and highlights the improvements made to the update of the ASBU framework to facilitate the identification of the optimum solution based on operational and performance needs. Finally, it emphasizes the difference between implementation and performance metrics and highlights the importance of global, regional, and national planning alignment to attain a globally harmonized performance management process. Recommendations to the conference are in paragraph 3. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. I ask South Africa to present working paper 6.9.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, everybody. Working paper 6.9, I'll be presenting working paper 6.9 on behalf of South Africa. The paper presents the wide concerns expressed that some states do not have a sufficient understanding of the ASBU concept to effectively plan and carry out the implementation of various modules. In turn, these challenges may impact on the development of the national, regional plans, and obviously the entity plans within the various organizations in the respective states. The 30th session of the ICAO Assembly endorsed under Resolution 38.2, of which the aviation system block upgrades methodology was a key component. The global ASBU methodology was designed as a program and a flexible global system engineering approach that will allow all member states to advance their air navigation capacities based on global, regional, as well as their specific national operational requirements. At that time, the GANP was meant to provide clear guidance on the guiding operational targets and supporting technologies, avionics, procedures, standards, and regulatory approvals that needed to realize them, and to establish a framework for incremental implementation based on the specific operational profiles and traffic densities of each state. In addition, during the triennium following the 30th session of the ICAO Assembly, ICAO would have developed a comprehensive plan for the development of the SAPs and guidance material to support the implementation of the ASBU. Once completed, this would have become an appendix to the 5th edition of the GANP to be presented to the 39th session of the ICAO Assembly. However, from lessons learned over the last 5 years since the 30th Assembly, the ASBU methodologies contained in the GANP has been complicated and not easily understandable for many states. It has posed a challenge, and it is evident by the non-implementation of the ASBUs. Although the GANP has had a worldwide perspective, it is not intended that all the block modules are required to be applied in every state. We understand that the operational requirements dictate such. During the informal briefing to the Council, the majority of the ICAO regional directors highlighted the need to simplify the ASBU approach to avoid the existing confusions in the state. I must emphasize, Chair, that the working paper before tea by the Secretariat seemed to sort of clarify by the introduction of the BBB. Furthermore, during a recent review of the consolidated annual report on the planning and implementation regional groups, as well as the regional aviation safety groups, the Air Navigation Commission expressed concerns that many states do not understand the ASBU concept. It is for that reason why we are highlighting probably a need to review the ASBU. Finally, the NNC reported to the Council that one of the common challenges faced by the regions is the need to improve their understanding. In conclusion, Chair, there is a need, an urgent need for that matter to simplify the ASBU methodology, and failure to do so will hamper the development of national and regional plans, which seeks to improve aviation safety. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, South Africa. Colombia, working paper 137.
Thank you, Chairman. The Global Air Navigation Plan, as well as the Regional Air Navigation Plan and the National Plan, are instruments that make it possible to effectively plan to ensure that the civil aviation system can take the increased demand safely on the basis of a shared long-term vision. The aviation system block upgrades, the ASBUs guide states step by step in the implementation of operational improvements in line with their own needs in a scalable and flexible fashion, and recognizing that one size does not fit all. To identify gaps in addressing projected demand and applying ASBU, questions arise such as what is the capacity offered today, and what is the level of service offered as opposed to expectations. This paper highlights how important it is to create a common framework for common indicators that are comparable and that can measure the expected benefits provided by the air navigation services provider and aerodrome operator. The paper performs an analogical assessment of the implementation of maintenance management processes used by aircraft operators and maintenance organizations, and seeks to apply this to ANSPs and aerodrome operators on the same basis of safety requirements in terms of organization, personnel skills, technical documentation, facilities, tools, and registries. With these basic elements, the service level can be confirmed on the basis of key performance indicators, as well as progress in operations following incorporation into national air navigation plans. This paper asks ICAO to establish SARPs, or procedures for air navigation service providers, so as to standardize the performance requirements for ANSPs with regard to aeronautical information provision, airworthiness, SAR, communication, surveillance, and aerodromes. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Colombia. Now invite the presentation of Working Paper 108 on behalf of Japan, Singapore, and the United States. Is Singapore presenting?
No. Thank you, Chairman, for the floor. Singapore will present Working Paper 108 on behalf of Japan, Singapore, and the United States. To prioritize future investment and to improve system efficiency, ICAO introduced the performance-based approach as part of the GAM with a view to implementing the ASBUs. A comprehensive list of potential KPIs was proposed in the Gantt. However, as the ANSPs face many challenges in the establishment and implementation of KPI measures, it is recommended that a guidance document detailing the GAM KPI framework be produced to help ANSPs realize the performance-based approach to implementing the ASBUs. In July 2015, the CAA of Singapore, Eurocontrol, and Federal Aviation Administration of the United States jointly identified the benefits of performance-based approach in air traffic service provision, as well as the challenges associated with its implementation and execution. As such, the three parties envisaged the development of common methodologies for the ICAO GAM KPIs and initiated performance benchmarking on two of the ICAO GAN KPIs. Through collaborative trial and error and multiple brainstorming sessions among all stakeholders, refinements to established methodologies as well as discovery of new methods were made quickly and effectively. The use of a common methodology also enabled an unbiased and accurate assessment of performance among comparable airports in the different regions. The progress of the work group was presented at various ICAO Asia-Pacific fora, and this attracted the interest of many states, with the Japan Air Navigation Services joining the group in September 2017. At present, the work group is identifying additional operational KPIs for benchmarking, and as a result, the methodologies for these KPIs are also being refined. The work group aims to continue its work to include all the KPIs in the Gantt. The work group would also like to offer assistance to ICAO in the development of the guidance document for the KPI framework, as this work group is represented by a group number of regions, namely Asia-Pacific, Europe, and North America. The work group has also spent many years researching and refining the methodologies and implementing the KPIs, such that the KPIs produced can be used directly for monitoring performance by the ANSPs. As such, the conference is invited to support the recommendation listed in paragraph 3.1. Thank you, Chairman, for the floor.
Thank you, Singapore. Colombia, Working Paper 157.
Thank you, Chairman. The aim of this working paper is to present the indicators developed for the Colombian Air Navigation Plan. And so that together with those of the GAMP, we can have agreed common indicators at the regional level, which can be used to report on the operational benefits which result from improvements and upgrades introduced by states, and have a synchronized approach to improved performance of international air navigation. Each state, in accordance with its operational needs, should propose indicators on the basis of the ASBU framework, and make sure that the indicators are as uniform and standardized as possible. To this end, we invite the conference to urge ICAO and member states to agree on a joint framework of indicators which will enable states to report their operational benefits. And on the basis of those measurements, they will be able to have regional and global monitoring of GAMP implementation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I invite Republic of Korea to present Working Paper 238.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everybody. Emphasizing a performance-based approach to air navigation planning and implementation, Working Paper 238 stresses the importance of developing harmonized key performance indicators and standardized performance data management process with presenting the Republic of Korea's national KPIs development, and explains the necessity to update guidance material on methodology for data collection and analysis to effectively conduct the performance monitoring. Since the endorsement of a performance-based approach to air navigation planning and implementation at the 11th Air Navigation Conference, as well as at the 35th ICAO Assembly, ICAO encourages regions and states to implement their performance framework for air navigation systems on the basis of ICAO guidance and regional performance objectives, and recommends the states utilize a focused set of KPIs that provide the means of identifying national shortfalls and prioritizing investments. First off, introducing the updating status of our case National Air Navigation Plan, so-called NARE, with its national KPIs and KPAs. Section 2.6 highlights the 4 key elements of a performance management process to be considered, and they are identification of needs, challenges, and prioritize, establishment of performance objectives and KPI, effective performance monitoring using KPIs, and finally, cooperation with stakeholders. Secondly, in Section 2.10, we highly value the ICAO's efforts to advance a performance-based approach through introducing performance ambitions and performance objective catalogs in the new edition of GAMP and the ASBU, and request ICAO to continue work for development of global KPIs to support regions and states to implement a performance-based approach smoothly. Thirdly, in Section 2.12, RK would like to highlight performance monitoring based on the accomplishment of an agreed level of a performance target using KPIs, not only on just the implementation status or implementation target on the chosen set of specific ASBU modules. Last but not least, with regard to the globally harmonized performance data management process, although ICAO provided the relevant guidance in document 9883, many states are not only facing challenges of performance monitoring and review, but also facing limited capability in managing ATM performance data, including collection, warehousing, and analysis, which are the basic features of the performance monitoring and reporting. In this context, the Section 2.14 and 2.15 point out the necessity of a standardized performance data management process for globally harmonized implementation, and also request the ICAO to update guidance material in detail on performance data collection and analysis with best practices and exemplary models. With this, Mr. Chairman, the conference is invited to agree to the recommendation as stated in paragraph 3. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Republic of Korea. I invite UAE to present Working Paper 91.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This paper proposes to establish a principle of harmonization against regional performance management capabilities in support of effective aviation system block upgrades implementation. Without an effective methodology for the evaluation of benefits associated to the ASBU module implementation to support states in the development of a cost-benefit analysis, fragmentation of commitment is generated which hinders realization of regional performance improvements. The assessment of suitable KPIs against ASBU's implementation hinges on varying regional and national data processing and archiving capabilities, whilst also requiring states' financial investment. Lack of effective methodology for evaluation of benefits associated with some states to carry out cost-benefit analysis generates a fragmentation of commitment across regions. These varying capabilities across states to perform assessments should be supported more through a regional approach to harmonize capabilities and enable greater commitment through common data-driven justification. The conference is invited to agree on the following recommendations. Support ICAO through planning and implementation regional group in enhancing performance management capabilities against Global Air Navigation Plan GAMP Doc 9750 and KPIs. Encourage states to share performance assessment results against relevant GAMP KPIs and promote a collaborative performance assessment approach against aviation system block upgrades implementation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello.
Thank you. We now have Working Paper 99, also by the UAE.
Thank you, Chairman. This paper presents the United Arab Emirates proposal towards enhancing commitment from the ICAO and member states in maintaining harmonization of national, regional, and global air navigation plans with respect to the inclusion of the new items and the principles of the ICAO No Country Left Behind initiative. Fundamentals behind a successful harmonized global enhancement program is alignment between global, regional, and national plans. The economic significance of aviation to member states varies and does not always deliver harmonized financial and political commitment towards priorities within the GAMP. Rapid emergence of the new items and modern technologies requires a refocus to ensure the differences between states' capabilities does not grow exponentially. Collaborative commitment through the principles of the NCLP, through national and regional collaboration and appropriate platforms such as a committee or working group, both regions and states should fully support ICAO in delivering regional and global performance-based priorities under the principles within NCLP, facilitated through the use of cross-border, inter-regional and intra-regional collaboration. ICAO and states should ensure the commitment and alignment through national, regional, and global air navigation plans are maintained, whilst facilitating adaptability for emergence of new entrants. The conference is invited to agree on the following recommendations. Encourage states, regions, and international organizations to support cross-border, inter-regional, and intra-regional collaborative planning activities and projects, supporting effective, efficient, and expeditious harmonization. Support ICAO to promote NCLP initiative principles, which supports all states in ensuring commitment and development of timely and accurate national air navigation plans aligns with regional and global plans. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now have working paper 165 by the ICC, AIA, and IATA.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everybody. Working paper 165, ASBU implementation, first recognizes the ICAO work in support of the deployment of a new air traffic management solution by setting up the multidisciplinary working group to address the economic challenges in implementing the ASBU, and by proposing in Annex 8 of the Global Air Navigation Plan, 5th edition, high-level recommendations to help states improve the performance of their ATM system. Now, this paper calls for additional ICAO activities in order to review earlier multidisciplinary working group recommendation based on recent deployment activities where it was put into practice, and build on this experience, best practices and lessons learned to develop more detailed guidelines on ASBU implementation. Typically, how to ensure synchronization of air-ground industrialization and deployment. This paper also calls for the consideration of operation incentives during the upfront development by ICAO of new ATM concept of operation in order to ensure their early buying and pave the way for their practical implementation. With this, Mr. Chairman, we invite the conference to agree with the following recommendation: that the conference request ICAO to develop detailed guidelines on the use of financial and operation incentives in support of ASBU implementation, and request ICAO to examine possible operation incentives in the development of new ATM concept. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I ask for a show of support to have this paper discussed. Thank you. And I will invite the Secretary to present clarification.
Thank you, Chair. Just two small clarifications in these papers. The Secretariat would like to clarify that work related to the key performance indicators and performance related with the Global Air Navigation Plan is already ongoing. And therefore would like to propose that the working group proposed in working paper 108, based on the discussions that we had last week, be formalized as part of the establishment of the GAMP study group. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. We now open the floor for discussions. UAE.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We support working paper 11 and 108. We think it's an excellent proposal and will support all states in expediting approvals for the development and the implementation of ASBUs. We also take note of the WISE proposal that was just proposed by the Secretariat. We agree and commend the efforts of Colombia, of working papers 137 and 157, to share data and outputs from ASBU implementation. It is in line with our proposals in our working papers, and Colombia's contribution should be commended and should be taken notice of with the enhancement of KPIs and CBA harmonization and enhancements. With regards to working paper 165, we also support that. In fact, it is an implementation in the UAE with the best capable, best served. This was based off a comprehensive airspace study in the UAE. It gives operational advantage to operators that are equipped and leads to less delays and optimization, the priority management during peak hours operations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Japan.
Please. Thank you, Chairman. At last, regarding working paper 11 and the proposed working group by Secretariat, Japan would like to support. According to more suitable implementing and preparing necessary materials and documents, GAMP ASP blocks and roadmaps should be clearly input exactly years in line with current GAMP ASP roadmap, especially block 4. Even it might be already noted by GAMP website and tackling work, but it should be clearly indicated to easy to understand. Besides, working paper 165 by IATA also would like to support a special recommendation B to necessary to implementation each ASBU modules, and C is needed to reflect, indicate new GAMP concept in line with vision, performance ambition, and conceptual roadmap. And finally, regarding 238 by Republic of Korea would like to support. According to this working paper recommendations, in order to ensure to more common understanding and sharing monitoring experience with regional and global level, it should be focused on how utilize formulate GAMP KPI and how conduct assessment using GAMP KPI. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Brazil.
Buenos dias.
Good morning, Chairman. Brazil supports better harmonization across PIRGs for GAMP implementation on the basis of ASBUs and greater simplicity but strictness. We believe there should be more guidance material on KPIs and a methodology for measurement. So Brazil strongly supports papers 11 by the Secretariat, 168, 108 by Singapore, and the Colombian paper. And with regard to 69 by South Africa and 99 by the UAE, 4E, and the Emirates paper, all of these recommendations enhance the importance of state cooperation in developing plans. This is very important, and we are attempting to do this. Brazil has given a lot of support to Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Panama. But ICAO's participation through the regional offices is extremely important, because aside from technical capacity limitations, we also have budget constraints. So ICAO support through the regional offices in the form of grants to countries is very important for all of us to be able to move forward together in aviation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. Switzerland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Switzerland supports working paper 238, which is aligned and reinforces working paper 11 presented by the Secretariat and working paper 108 presented by Japan, Singapore, and the US. With respect to recommendation B of working paper 238, we suggest, as included in working paper 11, that all regions and states should apply the 6-step ICAO performance process of document 9883. We would like to highlight the importance of recommendation D, which addresses the aspect of a standardized performance data management process. This recommendation is also in line with the action plan in the Chapter 3 of the 5th edition of the GAMP, the Global Air Navigation Plan 2016. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to all. As to working paper 137 from Colombia, we welcome the interesting approach proposed by Colombia in relation to ANSP and aerodrome operator performance requirements. However, the recommendation to standardize performance-based requirements through SARPs or PENs is not supported. Performance management should be carried out at the regional level through PIRGs using the KPAs and KPIs deemed necessary and appropriate for each region. For working paper 157 by Colombia, We are not convinced that it's appropriate to specify a joint framework, as not all elements will be implemented by all states, in order to enable the required performance. In line with our comment just now on Working Paper 137, we propose the performance management should be addressed at the regional level through PIRGs, where a suitable framework for the region can be established. As for Working Paper 238 by Korea, we welcome the comprehensive information in Appendix A and B in relation to the performance indicators adopted in the National ATM Reformation and Enhancement Plan. CANSO supports a performance-based approach, and, as stated in Korea's paper, we also welcome ICAO's efforts to advance this. We fully support further development of guidance material covering both performance management processes and KPIs. However, as just expressed for Working Paper 137 and 157, we firmly believe that the application of harmonized KPIs and standardized performance data management processes should be pursued at the regional levels through the PIRGs. There are valid regional differences, for example in the approach to air traffic flow management, which will influence the appropriateness of KPIs and data management processes. Further, we fully support Paper 165 by ICCAIA and IATA, Working Paper 91 and 91 by the UAE, and as for Working Paper 108 by Japan, Singapore and US, we fully support their paper. ANSP involvement in design KPIs and potential extension to new KPIs is essential, and CANSO is ready to assist wherever necessary, also in the newly established working group later on the GAMP steering group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CANSO. Finland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, everybody. We welcome the Working Paper 137 presented by Colombia. However, it should be ensured that technical performance requirements are requested only for the purpose of global interoperability and not on a module basis. This should take into account key performance indicators already defined within the GAMP. We support also the comments made by CANSO on this paper. While I have the floor, I would also like to express support to Working Paper 99 presented by United Arab Emirates, and specifically to underline the necessity for ICAO to facilitate intra- and inter-regional harmonization. Thank you.
Thank you, Finland. Canada.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Canada really believes in advancing air traffic management through a very solid ASBU concept system and sharing collaborations and information through a regional construct. However, let's be careful and clear about the difference in state capabilities in achieving the established goals, as states have different capabilities and resources. So let's maintain we favor a performance-based approach rather than a too prescriptive approach, which could have not the desired effect at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Canada. Egypt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Arab Republic of Egypt would like to support Working Paper 91 and 99 presented by UAE. Also would like to support Working Paper 69 presented by South Africa, and the recommendation from this paper, especially number C. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Netherlands.
Thank you, Chair. Netherlands supports Working Paper 11 of the Secretariat and the importance of a globally harmonized performance management process. We see the need for a comprehensive analysis and a setup for an appropriate performance-based framework. Next to our support for all the recommendations in the paper, I would like to express two views on recommendation D. Firstly, I would like to highlight that as part of the continued development of the performance objectives and key performance indicators catalog, also further guidance on the interdependencies between various key performance areas is required. And secondly, I wish to underline the importance of an ongoing review of the key performance indicators based on actual data in order to stay relevant. Thank you.
Thank you. Portugal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good day to all. Portugal would like to support the recommendations made in Working Paper 69 submitted by South Africa. on a simplified ASBU methodology. We acknowledge the concerns expressed in this working paper because we can see the benefits of a clarification on the relevance of elements of the ASBU framework with regard to certain operating environments. I would also like to take the opportunity to express support to working paper 91 presented by the United Arab Emirates related to the performance effectiveness of ASBU implementation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Norway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good day to all. Norway would like to support Working Paper 108 as presented by Singapore. We would like to highlight that this joint work is performed as a collaboration among the members, where also Eurocontrol contribute in this important work and also in the writing of this working paper. However, Norway would like to propose a change in Recommendation A, as it should not be limited to ANSPs, but also include airspace users and airports, which include all relevant stakeholders. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Austria.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Austria supports the recommendations presented in the working paper 165 and take note about the already made additional explanations from ICAO. However, the Global Air Navigation Plan is not a one-size-fits-all plan. The economic feasibility of the implementation of some ASBU elements is strongly dependent on local operational circumstances. Therefore, guidelines on incentives can only lay down the principles and the approach to identify and use local incentives. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Austria. Ecuador.
Thank you, Chairman. I would first like to thank ICAO and the Secretariat for their efforts and dedication to global harmonization of a very complex issue, but which is so important to implementation of the ASBUs. And the new fields for PKI and PKA. I thank Secretariat for their immediate answer that the GAMP study group is already aware of the new PKIs and PKAs. Ecuador supports Working Paper 108 by Japan, Singapore, and the US, and an approach based on GAMP efficiency and ASBUs. We believe it's very appropriate to consider the need to draft a guidance document on the PKI framework and to include other PKAs that are important to performance that can't be covered in the GAMP as it currently stands. Ecuador also supports Colombia's paper 157, and we agree that there should be a common indicator framework for GAMP implementation. We support the idea that although PKIs and PKAs could be different from region to region, nonetheless the concept of global interoperability across regions is also valid. This will no doubt help us describe the operational benefits achieved and allow for monitoring of GAMP implementation. Chairman, Ecuador supports Working Paper 69 presented by South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Ecuador. Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Saudi Arabia appreciate all the working papers presented under this agenda and their recommendation. We also would like to congratulate United Arab Emirates for Working Paper 91 and strongly support the recommendation of this paper. The sharing of performance assessment result against relevant GAMP KPIs can be facilitated by the GAMP portal, which would ensure that states are adopting best practices in the implementation of performance framework. Saudi Arabia also would like to support the recommendation of Working Paper 99 presented by the United Arab Emirates, as there is a need for close cooperation and coordination at regional levels to align and ensure harmonization between states. Mr. Chairman, I would like to refer to Recommendation A and B of Working Paper 108, Saudi Arabia think that the KPIs framework guidance will be a good basis for measurement and assessing the effective level of implementation of GAMP and ASBU modules and associated elements. Thank you.
Thank you. IATA.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. IATA strongly supports Working Paper 69 and the call by South Africa to develop a simplified ASBU methodology, given the voluntary application of the modules and the difficulties some may find in determining which modules they should implement. In addition, IATA supports Working Paper 91 and 99 by the UAE, 157 and Working Paper 238, and in Working Paper 238 in particular, recommendations little d and little e. Thank you.
Thank you. Venezuela.
Gracias. Thank you, Chairman. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela supports Working Paper 11 by the Secretariat. We also support papers 157 and 137 by Colombia and 238 by Korea, which present initiatives for the harmonization or draft development of common framework of KPIs and additional requirements for development, and the papers take account of the circumstances of each state. Projects and programs are needed to monitor progress toward the targets. The measurement of the results can promote the sharing of information and experience among the entities. Thank you.
Thank you. Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Chair. Nigeria supports Working Paper 11 by the Secretariat and also Working Paper 157 by Colombia. But however, we wish to note that for the key performance indicators, the volume of data that will be required for some of the KPIs will be very expensive and will require collaboration with other stakeholders, and so implementation of ACDM is very, very necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Morocco.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chairman. We are looking at both the economic and technical dimensions of these undertakings, and for a future implementation plan, we suggest ensuring harmonization for air traffic management in the long, medium, and short term. It's important to rationalize costs and airspace and ensure proper classification of airspace. Inspector certification and other initiatives ensure good regional governance. We must be proactive. We need a common platform for sharing experiences. And these initiatives are necessary in support of Annex 19. We support Working Paper 11 and 238. Thank you.
Thank you. Japan.
Jordan. Maybe some technical issue with this.
Sure, Jordan.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jordan welcomes working paper or papers 137 and 157 as presented by Colombia. Also supports working paper 108 as presented by Singapore, as well as working paper 238 as presented by Korea, in addition to working papers 91 and 92 as presented by United Arab Emirates. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jordan. Thailand.
Thank you, Chairman. Thailand would like to support the working paper 108 presented by Japan, Singapore, and the United States, and also the working paper 238 presented by Republic of Korea, as we are also recognizing the need for ICAO guidance material for KPI framework, especially for ANSPs, to improve the ASBU implementation efficiency. And moreover, we would like also to congratulate the Republic of Korea in developing their National Air Navigation Plan, particularly the development of the KPIs to monitor the performance and implementation's benefits. We agree with their recommendations on the necessity of standardized performance data management process and the harmonized KPIs as well. Thank you.
United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd like to add on to the interventions by Council in Canada regarding Working Paper 137 from Colombia. The United States supports measuring performance-based requirements and the example given in the paper regarding ANSPs and aerodrome operators. However, we wish to offer a word of caution regarding the wording of the recommendation asking for standardization through SARPs and PANs, as many states already have different processes that work for their own unique systems. This may be better put, as Brazil stated in their intervention, as guidance material and an example for states to follow. We also would like to support Working Paper 11 and 91 and 99 through the United Arab Emirates. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Uruguay.
Thank you, Chairman. As the improvement groups continue their good progress under the ASBUs, it will be important to establish a good degree of trust to ensure interoperability of systems and the harmonization of procedures. It would be appropriate to adopt at the regional level a management process on the basis of regional targets, and then in each state they can assess the levels provided as opposed to the expectations at the regional level, and incorporate that into national plans. And in that way, it will be possible to measure the expected benefits using a common framework of indicators that have been agreed on regionally. It would also be useful for certain states to have a simplified version of the ASBUs so as to get a better understanding of the actions required. Uruguay supports Working Paper 11 by Secretariat, and papers 137 and 157 by Colombia, as well as paper 69 by South Africa. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Spain.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, delegates. This delegation supports Working Paper 11 by Secretariat. In particular, we agree with what the Netherlands said on this matter. We need to emphasize the need to do a detailed analysis of the performance areas so as to better understand the interdependencies. The performance indicators should be based on relevant and up-to-date data. We also support Working Paper 69 by South Africa. We believe it would be good for ICAO to produce a simplified version of the ASBU methodology to promote better understanding among states. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Poland.
Okay, thank you, Chairman, and thank you all delegates. We strongly support an intervention made by the Netherlands on the Working Paper 11 and confirm that there should be a mapping of key performance areas to better identify and understand interdependencies. Moreover, then key performance indicators should rely on updated and relevant data. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sunan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to support Working Paper number 11 presented by Secretariat, and strongly support Working Paper number 91 and 99 with its very excellent recommendations. Obviously, ASBU's implementation within single states limitizes and hinders the expected benefits. We support the other concept of cross-borders and intra-region harmonized implementations of ASBUs, taking into consideration the different capabilities of individual states. And also, if we could add to the recommendation is to urge state to harmonize its national plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. And this intervention from Kenya will be the last one before we break for lunch. Kenya?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Kenya wishes to support the call by South Africa on simplification of the ASBU methodology, noting and reminding the meeting that this is a feedback from the states provided to the Air Navigation Commission, hence the need to be seen to act on that feedback. We also note that simplified ASBU methodology will facilitate the implementation of the recommendation by the Secretariat, that is recommendation A and B, through the working paper number 11. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with this last intervention, we will break for lunch, which is sponsored by Canada, and we will continue the discussions after lunch. Thank you.